Welcome to another episode, everyone. And white women are emotionally reacting to Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance. They've had a revelation of sorts.
Years, man, he killed it. And the subliminal messaging and symbolism just went right over all of MAGA's head. But those who were supposed to get the assignment got the assignment. I got the assignment.
You know I don't do sports. You know I don't do football, so I wasn't watching the game. But listen, I think today Donald Trump is going to sign an executive order banning black people from halftime. Because you remember last week we were talking about whether the NFL was capitulating to Trump by removing the term "end racism" from the end zone. Yeah. Boy, did they not capitulate to Trump. When I saw Samuel L. Jackson dressed as a black Uncle Sam introducing Kendrick Lamar, who then had like an entire formation of all black people making a U.S. flag. Listen, this much I know. All the black people on my feed were like, ooh, this is blackity black black. And all the racists who somehow get in, man, were they hopping mad. So if the racists are mad, I am happy as a clam. It was a huge celebration of New Orleans, and you can't celebrate New Orleans without celebrating black culture. Yeah. Welcome to Black History Month, you all.
You know, one of the lines that has become clear to me in Kendrick Lamar's performance last night is 40 acres and a mule. And that line is particularly potent for many Black Americans. And it happens to be a line that I remember from my education growing up in grade school in the Bronx. And I vaguely remember what it was about. It was something that was promised enslaved people. I can't remember whether I was told it was before or after emancipation, but it had to do with the Civil War. And I've since had my memory refreshed. And it was something that the federal government promised enslaved people that they would get. And it would help them get a head start. But, as with many promises given to Native Americans, they didn't come through. And I never really equated 40 acres and a mule because it was not something that really ever touched my life. But in thinking about it this morning, I never really equated it with something else that was very important to American life, which was the Homestead Act. Now, if you don't recall the Homestead Act, for some reason, there's a lot of American history that was that really stayed with me. And the Homestead Act was an act that the federal government felt was extremely important because they wanted to populate the Midwestern part of our country, the prairie. And so they offered 160 acres free and clear to people who would farm the land, ranch the land. I guess it was really only good for farming, but they would give free and clear 160 acres to people. And they had mapped out a huge swath of prairie land. And it was white people who took that land. And that's how a lot of our Midwest cities came into being. And they didn't rescind that promise. They gave 160 acres to people free and clear. And all they had to do was stake it out. And this may be apocryphal, but I seem to remember in class hearing how there was a date and they had people lining up and they set off a bell and you could just go and stake out your plot of land and it was yours and you could farm it. And that was the beginning of generational wealth for a lot of white people. A lot of these people came from Germany and Middle European countries, and they got a stake in this country. And here we have enslaved people who were brought over against their will and finally released from bondage and promised for their servitude they would be given 40 acres and a mule, and a mule. And they got nothing. And they had to start from scratch. Just a thought. Think about that. Think about how you'd feel if that promise was made to you and then you were just blown off. Okay, that's it. See you next time.
You know, she had never thought about it because, I'm just saying that's what she said, that, it never really crossed her mind, the 40 acres and a mule. Even in her, seasoned age. And that's because it doesn't affect her. Because she wasn't a slave. At least in this country. And her not receiving 40 acres and a mule, did not affect her life in any way. She wasn't promised it. And so she just went on with her life, never even giving it a thought. But we think about it, black people do.
Hi, white woman here. I'd like to talk about the Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl performance. It was absolute perfection in every way. The artistry, the symbolism, the music. Here's the thing. Even if it wasn't your type of music, it was still really, really amazing how each song with the performance meshed together with the message. The opening sequence when he was on the car and then he was in the middle of the flag, the way I looked at that was America was built on the backs of Black people, slaves. That's how America was built. Okay. And that's how I took that scene. And when he said 40 acres and a mule, I didn't know that that's what was offered to slaves. I had no idea, because guess what? I wasn't taught that. And the one thing for someone like me, I grew up in white America.
Okay, so she didn't know that black people were promised 40 acres and a mule, even at her ripe age. She says because she wasn't taught that. I have breaking news. I have a news flash for all white people who may or may not be watching, who may or may not know. 40 acres and a mule was promised to black people, and we never got it.
Southwest Pennsylvania. Okay. Like 90% of my area is white people. So I grew up, the only reference I have for black culture is through music. I grew up with Tupac, Dr. Dre, NWA, Ice Cube, Mystical, and Master P, even Biggie and Puff Daddy. I mean, I hate to say that, but that was just like growing up in the 90s, right? Like those were who a lot of people listened to. My first major news story was Rodney King. That's how I was introduced to how black people are treated in America. Like black music for someone like me, I used it as like a learning tool. Like, oh my God, I had no idea this was going on. Like, oh my God, this is what I should, learn more about. Like I took it as.
And, just a side note, that's what many of the artists have been trying to say for some time, hip hop artists, rap artists, if you will. Tupac said it on multiple occasions, that their music is just designed to get out a message, that they're speaking to the deplorable misery that besets their community, and that a section of the world doesn't know about this misery, and that it's their job to deliver the message through their music. She's confirming the fact here that she learned about black people's plight through music. So music is effective in spreading a particular message.
Education. yeah, obviously I like the music, but I actually listened to what was being said, and then as much research as I could do at the time, talking to friends or whatever, and, reading, going to the library, going through the card catalog, reading about things. Because we were never taught things in school. I was taught that George Washington had wooden teeth, had no idea that he had teeth made from his slaves. Like, no idea, because we weren't taught that. So I used Black music to teach me. And I also want to say, for the white people out there, that Super Bowl was for the Black community. That was for Black people. It was to us. We need to take that and we need to learn from it, because that messaging and that symbolism was so important. We cannot let that slip away from us to learn from and do better. Kendrick Lamar gave us an assignment. Let's fucking take it, okay?
A lot of things I could say about Kendrick Lamar's halftime show, and it's the only reason that I watched the Super Bowl, but the one thing that sticks out to me is when he said, you can rig the game, but you can't fake influence. I'm not sure a lot of people understood a lot of the things that he said, because he is, as a lot of people have said, he's a messenger. He's a lyricist, he's not an entertainer. And a lot of Americans are looking for mindless fucking entertainment. So a lot of people were bored by it. It's like the biggest thing I've seen is people saying that they were bored. Well, maybe you should fix your entertainment addiction. I don't know. He also said the 40 acres and a mule, and if you don't know what that is, you should get a history lesson. And I really love that quote, even above the revolution will be televised, because what he was getting at there, if you didn't realize, is that the game has been rigged against the Black community since day one that their ancestors stepped onto this land. Even with the way that the system has been rigged, the Black community has had the largest influence on our culture in this country. I especially love that in the month of February, we are talking about this, and the Black community is having a renaissance. This is their renaissance. The fact that we are really talking about the influences of Black culture and how many of the things that we love today stem from their genius and their creativity, and the influence they have had on our society.
I didn't watch the game, but I watched the halftime show because I really like Kendrick Lamar. I have a 25 and 23-year-old daughters, right? So I gave them a musical education. They gave me a musical education. And I'll never forget the first time that they played him in the car like 10 years ago. And I went, who is this? Who is this? And they told me, and I was like, play more, play more. And now I love it because when they're DJing in the car, especially my youngest daughter, she'll put them on because she knows I really like them. I want to make a point. I know everybody is doing their deep philosophical takes on the halftime show, but this is just something that occurred to me many, many, many years ago. A person in my life who is no longer in my life, but is now MAGA, right? That didn't exist back then, but we were at a museum looking at art, and it became clear very quickly that in her mind, the only function of art is to be beautiful. That's it. There is no other function of art. Like, if you have to think about it, or if it's even remotely ugly, she completely dismissed its value. And she was like, why would anyone want to look at art that's not beautiful? And I'm like, and I loved my art history classes in college. And so I'm trying in earnest to help her understand why art isn't just to be pretty and to make us happy. Now, here's the point. The halftime show is just another example of people like her, who we now have a term for them. We call them MAGA or MAGA. And that is, they don't want to think. They only want a thing to be the thing. If it's beyond that, they get angry and they get mad and they get frustrated. So last night, all the halftime show for someone with that kind of brain, all it's meant to do is sing and dance and entertain. That's it. Anything beyond that is too much for their little brains. And not only is it too much, it makes them mad. It pisses them off that they have to think, that they have to go, ooh, is there like a deeper message to this? Now, I think he did a really good job of making some of the messages not so obtuse that it gets lost. I think some of it was maybe a little obvious. I don't know. But they don't like that. They don't, especially when it comes to black and brown people, don't do anything other than entertain me, give me a good experience, and then you go off and do your thing. They don't.
No, go off and get the hell out of here. Come here, tap dance for me, entertain me, do your job, dribble a basketball, throw a football, or dance or sing, and then get your ass out of here. As she said, they don't want to have to be made to think. The symbolism. The first woman started off saying she understood the assignment. She got the symbolism. A lot of symbolism in the halftime show. Most of them grasped the symbolism, what it is that he was trying to say and convey. But many did not. It went right over 99.99999% of people's heads because they don't want to think, what is he trying to say? What does this mean? They don't want to have to use their brain.
Want any black or brown person to actually challenge us or cause us to think or to wonder or to ask questions or to no. And they would see doing that at a halftime show as extremely inappropriate to do because your job is to just entertain us. So anyways, I don't know if that matters. But it's just something that struck me this morning is that they're so surface level, they're so one-dimensional, that to think deeply about these things. And this is a guy who won a Pulitzer Prize for his lyrics, right? So he's obviously going to make us think. But they don't like it. It pisses them off. And just one more thing. I love all of this was happening in New Orleans. I don't know why, but that gave me a lot of satisfaction. And I nearly fell out of my seat when I saw Serena Williams. I could not believe it. I was telling my daughter, I was like, oh my God. I was like, that's Serena Williams doing the crip walk. And I was like, she dated Drake. She dated Drake because I'm chronically online. And she was like, yes, Mom, I know.
She said that's Serena Williams doing the crip walk. She know what the crip walk is, though.
It's like, okay, take a deep breath. Anyways, it was great.
Hey folks, what's up? I hope you're...
All right, there you have it. Kendrick Lamar. The performance, and yeah, some people were saying that the performance was boring and they didn't like it. But again, they did not understand the assignment. They missed the symbolism. They missed the messaging. And it was ripe, replete with messaging was the performance. Go back and check it out and see what it is that he's trying to convey. But these white women here understood the assignment. They got it. They all seem to have gotten the symbolism and what it is that the man was trying to say. Stay safe and stay free, people.